This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone is a science fiction novella published in 2019. The story follows two agents, Red and Blue, as they manipulate and sabotage time in order to achieve the future their side of the war desires. This novella is an incredible story worthy of all the praises people have been singing about it since its publication. Gladstone and El-Mohtar wonderfully handle what is realistically a complex concept, the concept being time travel, that is, and they do it beautifully. I love the metaphors they've chosen to represent what it is the agents are doing. Something to know about me is that I don't really like reading traditional science fiction. I love watching it. Hand me a sci-fi movie or TV show any day of the week, but for some reason I have a hard time getting into the books. I haven't completely written off the genre, so don't worry about that, but so far I've experienced very little success. I think what made How You Lose the Time War different for me is that the story was more character-driven, with the sci-fi elements being more of a backdrop. It's hard to say more about it though without getting into spoilers, so I'm going to leave this recommendation there. Definitely check out the book if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, and if you're like me and you don't like sci-fi novels, generally that is, then I would also recommend checking this one out. Maybe this will be the exception for you as well. I gave This Is How You Lose the Time War 4 out of 5 stars. Thrilling Cities by Fleming was originally a series of short-ish travel pieces published in the Sunday Times in 1959 and 1960. And if the author's name sounds familiar, it's because Fleming wrote all of the original James Bond books. And yes, this series of short non-fiction stories is just as racist and sexist as you probably think it's going to be. Fleming visits Hong Kong, Macau, Tokyo, Honolulu, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago, New York, Hamburg, Berlin, Vienna, Geneva, Naples, and Monte Carlo. And he does everything you expect the man that wrote the James Bond books to do. Drink, gamble, visit strip clubs, and talk to people about crime. But regardless of your interest in those activities, it is still fascinating to read. A little window through time, if you will. The late 1950s and early 1960s are an interesting time period for many of the cities the man visits. For example, when Fleming visits Berlin, the wall hasn't even been put up yet, and he takes a gander around the Soviet side of the city. Hong Kong and Macau are, of course, both physically close to China, which was an international pariah at the time because of its communist/dictatorship government. So it was interesting to get an idea of what it would have been like to visit during those times. Of course, the point of view of people who had actually lived there at the time would be more interesting, but outsiders' perspectives aren't in themselves valueless. What made reading this series more entertaining to me was actually the racism and sexism present, particularly in the Hong Kong, Macau, and Tokyo chapters. It's like watching a malicious bully make a complete fool of himself, saying something that he believes to be 100% true, but that you, and everyone else, knows to be 100% false. And there's a certain amount of power behind that, laughing at racist and sexist opinions. Obviously, condemnation is important. I'm not trying to tell anyone to stop doing that because that would be ridiculous. But the ability to look at something and laugh at it demonstrates the level of absurdity that we should all look at the opinions Fleming gives in this book with. When he first wrote them, he meant it to be considered and adopted by its readers. Now it only exists to be mocked. I gave Thrilling Cities 2 out of 5 stars. Mr. Salary by Sally Rooney is a short story written for the Faber Stories collection. It was first published in 2016 in Granta, a magazine publication, and was later published by Faber in 2019 as part of this new collection. Sally Rooney, for those who may have not clued in yet, is the author of Conversations with Friends and Normal People. I haven't read Conversations with Friends, but I have read Normal People, and this short story is completely the same vibe. Just messed up people trying to navigate the world and doing some messed up things in their attempts to do so. It's very much a character-driven story, and I'm frankly awed by the talent it takes to make me feel so much for these people in only 33 pages. And I meant that genuinely. Writing short stories is incredibly difficult and really shows the talent an author possesses. Mr. Salary knocked me flat, and I'm so glad I bought it. Unfortunately, it's basically impossible for me to talk about what the book is about, other than the vague ideas I gave you before, without venturing into spoilers. So as far as recommendations go, if you liked Normal People, or enjoy character-driven angsty stories, this book is for you. I gave Mr. Salary 5 out of 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts or opinions on any of the books that I've brought up today, please feel free to sound off below. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again.